All right, it's time for Going Green, our weekly feature, and tonight we're focusing on a report released this month that says South Africa's whole food system needs a complete overhaul. The Worldwide Fund for Nature, the WWF, says farmers will have to become more efficient and produce 50% more food by 2050 just to feed the higher population. Secondly, they will need more sustainable practices to not destroy the earth that feeds us. And finally, the food on our plates will have to be transformed, or the problems of hunger, malnutrition and obesity, on the other hand, will continue to rise. To discuss, we're joined by the Senior Manager at the Policy and Futures Unit at WWF South Africa, Tatjana von Bormann. She joins us via Skype. Tatjana, thank you very much. Let's start with the findings about the food that we're eating. I mean, food is meant to nourish. You're painting a picture where, to an extent, South Africans are harming themselves, harming their health.
Thanks, Francis. Yes, what we're eating has really steadily declined in terms of nutritional value in South Africa over the last 20 years. And we have this strange imbalance where we still have in the region of 12 million people who don't know where their next meal will come from, really terrifying rates of wasting and stunting in young children. And that means children who will never reach their full mental or physical potential, alongside escalating rates of obesity in adult men and women, and even in children. And this might be misunderstood as a case of eating too much food, but it's often got to do with poor nutritional value, so eating too much of the wrong food. So we've adopted a diet that's essentially a westernized diet: high fats, high sugars, high salt, lots of meat, and it's not doing us any good.
So you're talking about this fast food culture. To what extent is that due to a lack of knowledge about what makes food good? And to what extent is it attributable to the high cost of things like vegetables?
So I think actually it's a good question, because it's probably both. I mean, the world over, the question of why we eat what we eat is a study, a huge area of study in itself. But in South Africa, where we've really got very clear evidence that a basket of unhealthy food, of junk food, can cost in the region of 65% less than the healthy options. It's definitely about affordability, but it's also about food environments. If you look at what people are able to access easily in rural areas, in informal settlements, on transport routes, you see that the food that's being offered to people is also problematic.
So is this the food industry's problem, or should governments step in?
I think it's all of our problem. I think this is the result of a collective failure. I think there's been many steps along the way. Without a doubt, we are living in a market that is largely shaped by private business interests, and I think that's been deeply problematic. But everybody needs to get together now to find a solution. This needs to be a government-led, private sector implemented, and each one of us needs to become much more critical, really asking deep questions about why we eat what we eat and whether it's good for us.
Then this is such a comprehensive report. So you look at the food on our plates, then you move to farming, saying that we need to double food production by 2050. Doubling, is that possible?
Well, so it's comprehensive because we've tried to take a systems view. So instead of just saying we need to change what we eat, or we need to change the way we're producing the food, we've tried to say this is a system and we need to understand all the points in the system where change is possible, and do that without creating unintended consequences. We've known for a long time that we have to increase productivity, and the scenario work that WWF did for this report shows that actually with intense cropping, with increased yields, with just a marginal amount of increased irrigation, we can dramatically increase what we're currently producing. But it goes back to that question about what will we eat and how will we farm it, which kind of skews that. So there's a lot of things that can't be predicted as we look forward to 2050.
And of course, South Africa has done this before. If there's a gap, you can import food. Would you advise that we become self-sufficient? That's a debate. Do we need to double and produce all our own food?
No, in fact, if we were going to produce all our own food, we'd need to, we expect that meat and dairy products will increase by 100%, So doubling the food production is probably something that is about working with our neighbors, working in a globalized food chain. What we'd have to do in South Africa is probably a 50% increase. It would, I imagine, be entirely impossible for us given our very poor quality soils. We have less than 3% arable soils, given our very variable rainfall, given the fact that we will experience intense climate change. Doubling of food production within South Africa won't be possible. We will need to rely on others and become food secure in a way that is collaborative.
And doubling meat production is interesting. So this is by 2050, and a lot of people are looking at the problems of meat production. You spoke about climate change. Won't we have a wonderful substitute by then, Tatjana?
Let's hope. There's certainly a lot of work towards a substitute, and that's everything from insects to meat grown in a petri dish. But the meat in a petri dish has no fat, it's just muscle, so it's not very palatable and it costs a fortune. So we won't be able to meet the protein demands in this country simply on our landscape. We will have to change our diets. We will have to certainly, there are many South Africans who eat too much meat, who eat too much protein, and then there are others who simply don't have the privilege of being able to choose to eat meat every day. So I think there needs to be a rebalancing in the system. Some of us have to eat less meat to allow certainly young children to have access to high-value protein at an affordable price.
Tatjana, this isn't a great Skype line, but let's try through two more questions at you, because you also look at sustainability, about keeping the soil in good condition, about water scarcity, things like that, about biodiversity, preventing deforestation. How bad is it at the moment?
So I think it can't be underestimated, the impact it's having. Agriculture is the largest land use in South Africa and the world over. We have had the most extraordinary impact on our biodiversity. 2/3 of our wetlands are at risk of destruction because of agriculture. Agriculture has contributed to the fact that 80% of our river systems are compromised. Soil acidification, the size of the national park, as a result of a combination of coal mining, agriculture. So the reality is that from an environmental perspective, we are taking more than we give, and we simply won't be able to continue to farm in this way.
How do you get farmers who maybe are sort of trudging along right now to think about the future? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's an incredibly difficult thing being a farmer at the moment. You're vulnerable to the vagaries of the market, but also to the weather, to deep policy uncertainty. Where will South Africa go? And the need to really work collectively with smallholders to ensure that there's a comprehensive approach to bringing in new farmers and emergent farmers into the system. So I think for farmers, they're going to need support in terms of policy certainty. Retailers have a role to play here, and food manufacturers should be sending signals down the value chain to farmers to ensure that farmers are adopting good practices, who are working to bring smallholders into the system, who are building soil quality and using really scientific-based methods to improve their production processes. Those are farmers who should be supported and incentivized both by business and by government.
All right, we're losing that line there, but thank you very much, Tatjana von Bormann from the Worldwide Fund for Nature, SA. Food for thought, saying we have to look at our entire food system, including what we put on our plate and the fast food culture in South Africa. We take a short break, we'll be back.